morning, and well, it's probably morning for some and afternoon for others. But good morning. I'm Enrique Manzilla. I'm the director of the Superfund and Emergency Management Division here at US EPA Region 9. It's great to be on with you all, at least virtually. This has been quite a time for all of us in terms of just getting through life and getting through our work. But I appreciate your interest in learning more about the work we do in the Superfund and Emergency Management Division. And I think there's several folks from EPA on the line. It's clearly Damian Wilson, which some of you may know from our Navajo Abandoned Uranium Mines program, as a project officer in that program, doing a lot of good work for us and also helping us out on a lot of stuff like this, and coordination and communications and consultation. And then let me just make sure you know who else from EPA is on the line. I think Angeles, are you on the line as well? Is that you?
Yes, Enrique. Angeles Herrera is on the line.
Okay, so she's one of the assistant directors in the Superfund program. I believe Will Duncan is on the line. Will, are you on the line?
I am, Enrique. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Okay, great. So Will is our leader of the branch that works on Navajo abandoned uranium mines. It's a very big chunk of work that he leads in obviously in coordination and in partnership with the Navajo Nation, with our colleagues and friends of the Navajo Nation. Who else is on the line from EPA Region 9 from Superfund Division?
Harry Ball's on the line.
Okay, Harry.
Hi, this is Krista Brown.
Okay. So, okay, any other managers from Superfund and Emergency Management Division on the line? Okay, I think that's it. Okay, so let's start. Let me show you at least a brief outline. If you go to the next slide. So we'll talk about, we'll talk about emergency response and what we do under there. We'll talk about EPRA, Emergency Planning Community Right to Know, the work, and then we'll shift to the work that we do to figure out if a site should be on the national priorities list, i.e., should it be a Superfund site? And then we'll go through that process, and then we'll touch on things that we've done in terms of consultation, capacity building, and work on National Historic Preservation Act topics. And so let's go ahead and go to the next slide. And I put this one first because, you know, I think certainly, well, even folks in Arizona, I think some fires in Nevada, but certainly California tribes are well aware of the situation we've been facing for the past several months with wildfires. And this is just one example of the type of work that our emergency response program gets involved in. And we're in the midst of a disaster response right now. EPA is out in Santa Cruz, Monterey, San Mateo, and Santa Clara counties in the after effects, in the aftermath of this CZU complex fire. I believe I got the initials right. The one that affected Santa Cruz, Monterey, Santa Clara, San Mateo counties, obviously. And we're doing household hazardous waste cleanup up there. We have well over 100 EPA personnel and contractors, mostly EPA contractors, doing household hazardous waste cleanup as a prerequisite for the additional cleanup that will be done by the state of California in those areas. The bigger debris cleanup. Again, trying to get folks' lives back to a place where they can start rebuilding and get their properties ready for the rebuilding process. So I think we provide, we've over the years, and I've been the Superfund director since 2013. So over the years that I've been Superfund director, certainly I've seen us providing technical assistance to tribal response efforts, notification about emergencies where the tribes may have interest. We also assist the tribal and environmental programs and cultural monitors by integrating them into a unified command structure. I think my first experience with this was in 2015 during the oil spill that occurred down in Santa Barbara County at the Refugio State Park. And I know we worked closely with tribal monitors, cultural monitors, because we were doing a lot of excavation work to try to remedy the and try to dig up the spillage that occurred, especially inland before it hit the ocean. And of course, the tribes have done so in the past where they request our intervention on different types of hazardous waste situations or oil spill situations. And we've done that in the past. So let's go to the next slide. Here's a couple of examples. This is the San Carlos, as indicated on the slide. This is the San Carlos Apache tribe, where we did some extensive drum removal work. These drums, I think, were by various agencies in the 60s and 70s to kill weeds and suppress other unwanted vegetation. They held herbicides, and the drums themselves became distributed throughout the San Carlos community, and they remain today. We collected barrels from over 100 homes and analyzed the soil around the area for herbicides. So we've done work with tribes to remove illegally stored hazardous materials and household hazardous waste. And then we've also, when there's an incident occurs, we can do air monitoring for hazardous substances in the air. And let's go to the next slide. And again, if there's any questions, this is a good contact person, Amanda Pease, who works in the emergency response branch, is the tribal liaison, and I think she's been very helpful in dealing with several different issues and questions put forth by the tribe. Let's see. And let's go to the next slide, emergency response limitations. So as you might expect, it's never unlimited, right? Generally, we have a $2 million kind of cap on the amount of money that we can spend on a removal action. They're usually limited to 12 months. I've seen it go over both, but that requires a lot of work and a lot of appeals to our headquarters office for additional funds and additional time. It's generally restricted to substances that are defined as hazardous or oil. So we operate under CERCLA and also the Oil Pollution Act. For oil spills, we have to, those oil spills have to impact what are defined as waters of the United States. And we have limitations to dealing with naturally occurring substances like asbestos and commercial products. And we don't deal directly in terms of cleaning up sites with illegal drugs. We can be asked by law enforcement to intervene, but law enforcement is at the front on anything having to do with illicit drugs. Let's go to the next slide. So emergency planning, community right to know. I'm on the right slide, right? Yes. Oops. So in 1986, Superfund established new requirements for emergency planning and community right to know where there's waste or hazardous substances stored. And we obviously, to help tribes comply with these requirements, we recognize a role for the tribes similar to states in planning for responding to chemical emergencies. So historically, we used to put on a training track for emergency preparedness at the Tribal Training Conference. And in the last few years, we've sort of disinvested in this because both lack of resources, but also because of lack of tribal participation in planning. We can always talk about reinstating that at some point. At this point, we serve as a technical resource for tribal and emergency response commissions and are available for enforcement and inspection support under, well, mostly not, well, our ECAD and enforcement division is available for inspection and support under the 112R program and EPA. So in the coming year, I think we'll do some more outreach to Turks. And again, following up on I think this executive order on chemical safety is about 4 or 5 years old, but we've done a lot of work in the region on issues dealing with ammonia refrigeration issues. And I believe the Gila River Indian community was the first tribe in Region 9 to develop a full EPA ordinance. Let's go to the next slide. Now, switching gears. Now, the other part, so we talked about emergency response and EPA, and that's one part of the division's work. The other part of the division's work has to deal with what we would commonly known as Superfund sites. Those sites don't magically get on the national priorities list. They are usually they're difficult, complex, sometimes large sites, but they go through a process. And the first process is to assess the site. And we do it through a site assessment process. So the goal of the site assessment program is to assess and rank hazardous waste sites to determine whether they would qualify for listing on the Superfund National Priorities List, the MPL. So we do an elaborate process here. We do site visits, we review records, we interview people, we conduct sampling to determine if people or sensitive species are exposed to hazardous substances. The last effort on tribal lands was at Copper Bluff, which is currently in a much deeper investigation stage called the Remedial Investigation Feasibility Study stage. I believe this is the only site assessment completed over the last 4 years on tribal land. Let's go to the next one. So Superfund process for national priority list sites. As it indicates on the slide, several Region 9 tribes are affected by Superfund sites on the MPL. As I mentioned, it's addressed by a remedial program that basically resides in three of the four branches in our Superfund division. Several Region 9 tribes are affected by MPL sites, such as the Sulfur Bank Mercury Mine, Elam Tribe, Leviathan Mine, Washoe Tribe, Rio Tinto, Duck Valley, Shoshone, Paiute Tribe, Anaconda, Yerington Mine, Walker River, and Yerington Paiute tribes. This is the Superfund process. I hope you can see it on the slide. Again, starting with a preliminary assessment, site investigation, site inspection, and then once it's on the list, we conduct a thorough remedial investigation, a feasibility study that basically determines, okay, here are all the options to remedy the situation of the site. It offers up remedies for the contamination of the site. And then we issue a proposed plan or record decision that says, okay, this is the remedy that we believe is the most plausible one to proceed with. And that leads to remedial design, sometimes we have to design a fairly elaborate remedy and remedial action, construction, and then, a lot of our remedies require operation and maintenance. Some of the remedies leave the waste in place and then will require O&M for a long time. And once a remedy is completed or deemed complete, we can delist the sites. There's a lot of emphasis these days on reuse of sites, and I think many of our sites have been put back into use for, in terms of economic productivity. There are some sites that are comparable to MPL sites. There are of the caliber, but then they haven't been listed on the MPL that have a tribal connection. Cypress Tono Nation, Walker River, Paiute Tribe, and I know we've recently offered to the Tono Nation consultation on the Cypress Tono mine site there. And we have 5 cooperative agreements with tribes to basically help them help us in reviewing technical documents and really just engaging with us. We have cooperative agreements with Elam Tribe, Washoe, Yerington, Paiute, Walker River Tribe, and the Navajo Nation, of course, receives a considerable amount of support for the work that we do with them on abandoned uranium mines. Let's go to the next slide. CERCLA. So this is the law under which we operate. This slide shows a cleanup on the Northeast Church Rock on the Navajo Nation. So as indicated, it was established in 1980. It was a result of there's famous things in history regarding Love Canal and other important sites that were just very miserable examples of just wanton disposal of hazardous waste and hazardous substances having impacts, direct human health impacts. And that caused Congress to develop CERCLA, enact it, and it's been amended several times. But I think, in my mind, it's a very potent law. It relies on the concept of the polluter pays. And if the polluter cannot be found, or we cannot deem somebody as a viable party, EPA has a fund to be able to pay for these cleanups. Let's go to the next slide. So working with tribes, obviously we've reviewed some of the sites that have these connections that are on tribal land or are connected to tribes in one manner or another. And we obviously try to follow EPA's consultation process, as well as all the policies that are embodied and integrated into the consultation process, including the 1984 Indian policy and many others. Let's go to the next slide. Consultation and coordination. Circling in and of itself is something that is one big element of CERCLA in particular was the importance of consultation with affected communities and the importance of coordination and transparency. So I think we tried to do that, especially with regard to tribes, because to me, there's an additional element, obviously, for our work with tribes because of history, sovereignty, self-determination. So I think we pay particular particular attention to issues regarding consultation with tribes as we go through our actions, our investigations, and our cleanup actions. We obviously coordinate with them. We provide money for technical assistance. We have many face-to-face meetings, and we get involved in some pretty heavy technical discussions on these projects. We've done, just in my tenure, we've done several consultations, formal consultations with tribal governments, including a recent one with the Navajo Nation regarding our latest 10-year plan for dealing with the abandoned uranium mines in the Navajo Nation. We've also, as I mentioned before, just sent a consultation letter to Tohono O'odham Nation. And in the future, we'll probably have to do some additional consultation. We will have to do additional consultation as we move through the cleanup process for the abandoned uranium mines on the Navajo Nation. Let's go to the next slide. Tribal capacity building. I think one example, which is a work in progress. I think we've had a fairly long history of engagement with the Navajo Nation on issues regarding abandoned uranium mines. Just as a reminder, over 30 million tons of ore produced under mandate of the Atomic Energy Act was produced under mandate of the Atomic Energy Act. There are over 500 abandoned mines on the Navajo Nation, 400 of which have elevated gamma radiation. And we recognize that the Navajo Nation has been disproportionately impacted by this uranium mining due to pervasive mine waste and its impacts on their cultural ways, their lifestyle. And it's been a tremendous negative legacy that was left, I think, by the US government. So we've been doing a lot of work on the Navajo Nation. One aspect of the work has been to leverage the contracts and grants for employment and capacity building opportunities. We've used our grant and contract vehicles to leverage these types of things and provide work opportunities to Navajo businesses, universities, and community members. And we've awarded for the Navajo Nation government and the Navajo Nation EPA, we've awarded over $10 million in grants to Navajo EPA. And we've obviously tried to support them with training and with personnel throughout the years. We're hoping to award one additional big cleanup construction contract actually before the end of this calendar year to again continue the work that we're trying to do on the Navajo Nation cleanup abandoned uranium mines. Next slide. National Historic Preservation Act, Section 106. So I think we've been incorporating Section 106 consultation and tribal consultation, obviously, as a step in our Superfund process. I think this is one way that we've been inclusive of traditional ecological knowledge. This is just one way. And we've been training staff regularly and providing resources to assist them in navigating the 106 process. We have an interagency agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers to provide cultural resource technical assistance to EPA and NHPA issues. And we engage in consultation with tribes and the Office of Historic Preservation on remedial, and we used to do brownfields. That's in Jeff Scott's division. He'll talk to you about that, but we used to do that as well. And we have a number of tribal NHPA consultations that we've done as part of our cleanup projects. I'll just go through the names. Wiyot Tribe, Indian Island, Navajo Nation, Tohono O'odham Nation, and that's just an example. Let's go to the, and I think this is it. And so I'm happy to, I and the folks here on the line from EPA Superfund Emergency Management Division are happy to answer any questions you may have. And let me get
There
back to
is one question that came in from Jefferson from the Yarrington Paiute tribe. He asked in regards to the EPCRA Section 313 requirements for covered facilities in Indian country to report toxic release inventory. Is this for any covered facility or only facilities that are involved with toxins?
It would be, okay, I'm actually looking for his question here.
Yeah, it should be the very last thing
It should
entered.
be the very last. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Regards covered in an Indian country report time, does this cover any cover or facilities that are involved in toxins? Well, it's for facilities that are reporting to the toxic release inventory. That inventory has certain threshold amounts. Number one, it has certain chemicals that apply, that EPA applies, and certain amounts, threshold amounts in those facilities. So usually my experience in Indian country is that there are probably not as many facilities within Indian country that are reporting, but there certainly may be facilities outside of Indian country that clearly are of interest to the tribal governments. So that's generally the case with the toxic release inventory. And I gave you, and frankly, my explanation may have been a little vague too, but generally the toxic release inventory, again, there's covered chemicals and then there's threshold amounts. And if they go over those threshold amounts, they have to report to EPA. And that's you can go online in the EPA website, and it's actually a pretty cool tool because you can see where they are in, near your zip code, near where you live. You can see the reports that they filed for the amount of hazardous substances that they're dealing with and the type of hazardous substances they're dealing with. And so it's a very robust report. Let's see. Okay. Thank you, Jefferson. Any other questions?
The two came in the chat. I'm not sure if you saw them.
When can land that is part of the redevelopment trust on a Superfund site be sold or developed on? Certainly after a record of decision, it would have to be, but I imagine it can Corolla speak to us?
Corolla, yeah, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, not a problem.
Great, thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and it's in regards to the Sulfur Mine, there's lands that are under the redevelopment trust that are currently having development on, and there's not been a record of decision on the Superfund site. And so I'm just kind of curious how that's working out. Yeah, I go into more detail as the actual issue is. We do sampling on that beach.
Okay, yeah, Corolla, I know of this issue, but I don't know the answer to your question, and I think it's more complicated than it would seem. So why don't we have a separate discussion with the folks with our legal team to deal with that question. So if you want, you can send me an email, and then we could schedule some time, either whenever you want to have this discussion. I've heard of this issue, and I understand that something is going on, but I don't know enough right now to be able to speak to your question.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Just as a reminder before we end, to sign in the chat along with any other questions that you guys might have. And feel free to unmute yourselves if you'd like to just ask your question versus
That'd be
typing.
fine too. Well, let me ask, I'm gonna ask Will if there's anything, and Harry Ball is section manager in our federal facilities program, if there's anything else that they would like to add to the presentation.
This Harry, I just would add, for those of you who do not know me, I am a section manager with the Nevada and Federal Facilities section in Superfund, and so I have the Superfund facilities in the state of Nevada. So if anybody, I just wanted to put a welcome mat out to anybody who had questions or issues that please don't hesitate to call in or send email to me or my staff. We're really eager to engage and help people with any kind of Superfund related issues that they might have or questions that they want to explore with regard to the program. So
Great, thank you, Harry. So there's a question that just came in from Sarah Morgan. You mentioned providing household hazardous waste cleanup and post-fire recovery areas. How do tribes access that kind of assistance? They access by contacting FEMA, because FEMA, we are working under a FEMA directive, so to speak, more specifically called a mission assignment, and they determine those areas per federal declaration that would require federal resources like ours to come in and help with the cleanup. So they would be the first point of contact for tribes that are impacted by the most recent round of wildfires. And I know there's been several. I had a list. I don't have it in front of me right now, but there's a list of tribes that have been impacted by the most recent wildfires to a small, sometimes to a large degree. And there's been losses of structures, of residences on tribal lands, particularly in the really northern part of the real Northern California. But the best mode of contact would be through FEMA. And I can, Carissa, if I can work with you, I can provide you a name and a contact name that can, if you could send that to Sarah, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, sure.
I have the name of I just don't have it in front of me, of the tribal liaison at FEMA. Actually, let me see if I can, we're talking here.
Sarah, I will add my email into the chat box and feel free to email me and I'll provide you with the information.
Let me see. Okay, I'm going to put it into the chat box.
Great.
Let's see, where are we? Here we go. It's Betty. Oh, sorry. Betty Radwanski. I'll just give you her. Well, I'll do this. I'm just going to give you an email. I got it. So it's Betty Radwanski, FEMA, and so that's a good starting point. Just so you know, the household hazardous waste cleanup that we do is a shared responsibility We will get some areas, in the state of California, the State Department of Toxic Substance Control will get some other areas. So you may have, depending how these are assigned, you may have engagement with the state of California because they may be assigned to a larger area that may, in fact, include a tribal component. But they can certainly work with FEMA and your tribe to get started on household hazardous waste cleanup. And I think Harry just shared something from Kay Lawrence with regard to TRI. So that's even for Jefferson, that's an even more elaborate explanation than I probably gave you. And there you have it. Any other questions?
I don't see any coming in.
Okay. Damien, were you ever able to figure out your audio?
No.
Oh, okay. Damien's been permanently muted, unfortunately. Yes. But well, I just want to thank everybody. Oh, go ahead. Is there a question?
It just says in the chat, is there info on the EPA site for toxic release inventory for agriculture?
For agriculture, yes, there should be. Agricultural operations usually probably don't, a lot of them probably don't meet the thresholds. It would have to be you'd have to look at the site, but I would, there's probably not there are not agricultural operations of the magnitude probably that would trigger the thresholds in the toxic release inventory. But that's a good question. You'll see the different categories of industries that have to do the reporting. So that's another thing you can extract from the website. So you can see for yourself if agriculture is in there in any capacity. For the states in Region 9, Nevada and Arizona usually come up towards the top because of the high volumes of mine waste and mining byproducts. So Nevada and Arizona are always towards the top of in terms of quantity of releases. I would encourage you, if you're really in Jefferson, if you're really interested in TRI, to also attend the enforcement session if that hasn't, I don't know if that's happened already, but they do a lot of enforcement with regard to TRI. It is an enforceable statute and it's enforceable by EPA. It's not a delegated program. Okay. Is that it?
I believe so.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank everybody. I hope next year we can actually be together in person. That's definitely my very firm desire, and because I would look forward to seeing you all again in person. This this is a good replacement, but it's not quite the same. But again, if you have any questions whatsoever that come to you afterwards, my email is on the screen. You can email me and we can certainly follow up. And Corolla, I would ask you, if you're still on the line, I would ask you to email me just to remind me of your questions regarding Sulfur Bank and the land trust. Okay. And thank you all for your attention. Thank you all for your good questions. I'll see ya.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks, Damien.
Thank you.